We're going to talk about some Drupal migrations. Alright, this is me, I'm Will Long. These are the places you can find me on the internet. You can also find these slides online if you want to follow along there. I'm going to look them up later. They're already up. There'll probably be more commits coming as I find problems with them. So, there's actually this is broken in two presentations, so this is the first of the presentations. We're talking about planning for the migration, so the objectives for this are to highlight strategies for assessing the content that you're going to be migrating in. We're also going to cover what you want to do to rebuild a site in Drupal, so it's essentially building a Drupal site to support migrating content into. And then we're going to talk about some other considerations that you need to think about when you're moving content in. Alright, so the agenda, same three similar things. We're going to look at an existing site, talk about rebuilding sites in Drupal, and then talk about those considerations again. So why is migrate such a important topic right now? Scrolls, there it goes. So the major releases of Drupal have been getting increasingly harder to do an upgrade into. So Kirk talked to us a couple months ago about an upgrade he did. That was 6 to 7, is that right?
5 to 7.
5 to 7. So that's effectively 2 upgrades, correct? And how complicated was that? So,
7.
excuse me? On a scale of 7, it was 7. All right. So the notion of taking a Drupal site that is at 5 or 6 and moving it to 7, or now we're talking about moving to 8. It's getting incredibly complicated. There's a lot of reasons for it. Probably the biggest reason has to do with the contrib space and contrib modules that are available, and the underlying functionality within Drupal has changed enough that things that were going on in Drupal 5, Drupal 6 have changed drastically by the time we get to Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. Alright, another reason why you would want to migrate, Drupal is in demand. Clients are asking for sites in Drupal. They're not asking for a website on some CMS. They're specifying Drupal. We want a Drupal site. So if they already have a site and they want it moved into Drupal, migration is what has to happen. And then also the official upgrade path into Drupal 8 is migrate. So there's no actual upgrade being pursued at this point. It's going to be a migrate operation through the migrate suite. So talk about analyzing your content sources. So this is mostly in the context of moving an existing website into Drupal. There are other things you can move into Drupal. I recently did a migration of an app. It's an Adobe app that's using the Air technology. It's similar to a Flash application, but it's underneath the covers. It's powered by a bunch of XML files and some database tables. Actually did a migration moving all of that into a Drupal site. So all the content that was involved with, in making the app work is now in a Drupal site that is workable just like any other Drupal site. So we're going to analyze the source. We're going to talk about this only in the context of the website. So the existing site you have is a starting point. So it's got structure, it's got content, it's got assets. All of that's already there. Some of it may be useful, some of it may not be, but it's already a starting point, and that's something to base your migration off of. You can also use different pieces of the site to help you figure out what you have. So in particular, navigation elements. So if you've got menus that are structured in a proper way and different sections of the website, those both also can contribute to helping you determine what it is you're going to migrate in. So I'm just going to take a look at a few example sources here. One is wired.com. So if we were going to move this into Drupal, this might take a little while to load on Bob's Wi-Fi, so it's pretty quick here. So, I mean, if we were wanting to migrate something like this into Drupal, we would look at the content as it is. So we've got these articles here. Each one has like a short title up here. It's got a long title. We've got images that are associated with it. You can see there's a whole string of those. On the sidebar, we've got some other types of articles featured. And if you come down here towards the bottom, these are actually in different categories here. So here are some different categories that are implemented in the site. So how you'd implement these in a Drupal site kind of depends on what it is you decide you want to build. These the most basic way to do this would be with some type of taxonomy, and then you'd list things out of the taxonomy in this type of scenario. And also down at the bottom here, it's very difficult to read on the screen, but there are some navigation items down here that actually indicate some other pieces of content. So the main ones I saw there, they've got a contact us, or just some type of form that you submit, but they've also got the staff, they've got press calendar, which indicates some type of press releases.
Sorry.
And then you can also see some additional functionality that they've got here is they've got some subscription services, so you're able to subscribe to either their mailing list or some type of additional functionality there. The newsletter, you got some RSS feeds, and the sitemap is there also. So if we take a look back at another example, we've got the Verge. So the examples that I picked here are very content-heavy sites. This is the type of thing you probably end up putting into a Drupal site, as it's a content management system. That's the exact use case you'd want to do with Drupal. It's moving content in. So the content of the Verge, you can see here, the same type of thing. We've got these different articles. Each one's got some type of background image. It's got text up here. It's got a number here. I'm assuming that's a comment. More of the same down here, more articles, titles, images, bodies.
You're not clicking on them to see what content of the actual page. So you're just looking at the blog. There's a lot more information out there.
Sure, there's a lot more information. So the first step of looking at your content is going to be to try to flesh out some actual content types. And normally looking at landing pages, navigation, different structure like that will kind of help you get a baseline for some content types, and then to actually determine the fields that you're going to be working with. Well, you can start to see them in a display like this. You've got title, author, you got a time, image, and some type of body here. But if we actually do click into it, we can see more stuff that's related to it. You can see that here's the full body of the article. You can see if this particular piece of content has related items. These are probably tags of some type. One more example source. This is a more traditional case for this. This is actual print publication that has online as well. Very similar, different pieces of content, all kind of syndicated. The content could be structured differently. You can see here we've got authors, images, titles, summaries, bodies. So the main point of assessing the content is to figure out what you've got. Maybe what you've got isn't what you want, but it's where you start from. So figuring out what you've got is important. Taking a good inventory of that, figuring out what the structure that you have is, and moving forward from there is the first step of doing your migration. All right, so once you've got a good idea of what you're working with, the next thing you're going to want to do is rebuild it in Drupal. So the first step you're going to want to do there is actually build the Drupal site to support the content. So the basic strategy is build a shell of a Drupal site, build out your content types as close as you can get. There's room for error. You can always make adjustments going forward. Build your Drupal site, build out your content types, any supporting pieces that go along with that, any relationships between the content types, taxonomies, anything more like that. You can build all of that without even having content. You can always create dummy content if you want to see how it looks, and then get that ready to migrate content into. So analyzing existing content drives what the Drupal site's going to look like. As you move the content into Drupal, that's your chance to transform it. There are a few different things that you're probably going to be interested in doing once you're moving into Drupal. One of the main things you're going to do is probably going to be breaking blobs of content into fields. So if you're using either some type of static input or a non-structured form of input, you've got a big empty body field. And from there you can pluck out field values, hopefully. It depends on the structure of it all and how consistent it is. In my experience, doing that is fairly successful. Successful being probably 80 to 90% of all the content coming in meets it, depending on the scale of content coming in. I mean, it all depends. So if you're importing in 500 pieces and 3 of them need touched up, you can do that manually, or you can spend 3 or 4 hours of development trying to compensate for it. So it's all give and take. And then also, as you rebuild in Drupal, where are my slides now moving? Here we go. So yeah, we're going to adjust the content as desired as it comes in. Like I said, this is your chance to make the website how you want it to be. Anybody who's got a website out there is probably not happy with it. Is that fair to say? There are deficiencies in every project that's out there. This is your chance to make changes to it, make it work how you want. This is also a good chance to talk to stakeholders, whether it's just you or whether other users, other stakeholders involved with the site. It's a chance to rethink the functionality of the site. So if there are things that aren't working, you can remove them, or you can replace them with something similar but different. It all depends on what you want to do with the site. But rebuilding it in Drupal, that's your chance for a fresh start. Drop whatever you want to drop, add whatever you want to add, make whatever changes you want to make, and you can go forward from there. All right, some other considerations. These are kind of the gotchas of migrating stuff from any platform to another platform. One, you have to decide whether you want to preserve your URLs. Drupal's got Path Auto, which can generate sensible URLs for your content. Joe and some of your colleagues were talking about SEO stuff a couple months ago and highlighted the significance of good URL structure for SEO purposes. In addition to that, existing URLs have page rank, so you're going to have to decide what you want to do. If you want to preserve them, you can preserve them. Otherwise, you can adjust them. You can assign new URLs coming in and redirect if necessary. Linking between content. So if your URLs are changing, you've got to accommodate for that. So if you've got links in content pointing to other pieces of content that are at different URLs now, that's something you've got to take into consideration. You're going to have to go back and rewrite those, pointing to the correct URLs. You can also handle those with redirects. There are some caveats to that, though. Different things you can do with the site, particularly some libraries. The PDF generation library comes to my mind specifically that won't handle redirects. So if you are using the library takes an HTML source and creates a PDF out of it, and if the images linked in the PDF are redirected, that particular library doesn't handle it. I'm assuming there are other libraries with similar type behavior to them. File assets. Drupal, we want to hold our files in the files directory. You don't have to, but if you do move them in there, you're going to have to, at that point, there's no option but to redirect old links to those files to the new location of the files. Hopefully those are segmented into sane containers. So a lot of times what you'll see is at the root of the website there will be a directory called PDFs or images or assets or files. A lot of times at wholesale you can move that entire directory into your Drupal files directory, and then also do a wildcard redirect rule that will redirect all requests to those files to the proper location. There are many options to do that. The worst case scenario would be to do that with Drupal itself. The next best scenario to handle redirects would be to do that in htaccess. That's sufficient in most cases. Even more ideal scenario would be to do that in the Apache config. All right, and then other data. That's a nice vague term, so you can read into that whatever you want. In particular, there are a lot of things that you don't see on the screen that belong to your content. In particular, I'm thinking back to SEO terms, whether it's meta content for keywords, description, things like that. Basically, you don't want to break things that are already working on your site, things that are already working for the site. Losing that would be a big loss. It would be a big detriment to the site, and that's just another consideration you have to keep in mind. And that is the end of the presentation covering the planning for migration.
Thanks for. Sir?